Hello everyone, welcome back to the Nut House. Today I want to share with you a recipe that is a copycat of the Dollywood cinnamon bread that you would get at the park. I wish I would have showed you sooner because this would make the perfect Christmas gift for anybody. It is so delicious. So we're going to use the bread machine today, and you don't have to. You can do this by hand. It uses very little ingredients, but the bread machine does does warm it for me. So I'm going to start with a half of a cup of water. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to put that in the microwave just to let it heat up and melt. And then we're going to add that into the bread machine pan. Now you can use your mixer. In fact, if I were doing Christmas gifts, I would use my mixer and have, several of them going. So let's go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of sugar into the bottom of the pan. And then we're going to add, a half a teaspoon of salt. So now I've added the water and the butter to the sugar and the salt, and I'm just mixing it just a little bit because my butter wasn't completely melted. And now we're going to add the flour and the yeast. Now this only takes 1.5 cups of flour. Now you can use bread flour or you can use all-purpose flour. Today I'm doing bread flour because it has, more gluten, so the structure holds up and it rises higher. But the last batch I made was all-purpose, and it was delicious too. So go ahead and add your flour into your pan, and then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of instant bread machine yeast, and that'll just go right on top. So I'm using the dough setting on the bread machine, but of course you can, if you're using a mixer or your hands. I just want to make sure that I have enough flour or enough water. And here I'm adding a little water because you can see around the edges of this bread pan there is dry bits of flour, and I don't want that, because if I have really dry dough, then I'll have a really dry cinnamon bread, and you want this to be soft and airy, and it just melts in your mouth. So I just keep adding a little bit at a time until I see all of those bits gone, and it just comes together into a beautiful soft dough. So if you're not using a bread machine, you're going to need this for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're going to let it rise for about 1.5 hours or 2 hours until it's doubled in size. The dough machine rising time is 1 hour and 30 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do today. And you see how soft this dough is? That's what you are looking for. So after it has finished and risen, we're going to get that dough out and we're going to cut it into 2. It's going to make 2 loaves. And I'll be honest with you, you'll think this is not enough dough for 2 loaves of bread. And it is small little loaves. That's why I say it's almost a personal loaf, or even a loaf you could give for a couple, where they would get just a couple pieces, each. But here we're going to cut it in half, and then we're going to roll it up into a log that looks, you know, similar to a loaf. And then we're going to let it rest for about 30 minutes. Okay, so now we're going to prepare our topping, which is what makes it so delicious. It turns out kind of crunchy, but the butter soaks into the bread, so it's buttery, and the bread itself is just so soft and airy. My husband ate some and said this should be a sin, and my son keeps asking me to make it over and over and over. But we're going to try not to eat so much sugar maybe this year. So we're going to start with getting about 1/3 cup of butter in the microwave to melt. I'm going to add 1/4 cup of brown sugar and 1/4 cup of white sugar. And then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of cinnamon to this. So I'm using 1 disposable loaf pan and then 1 just small regular loaf pan. Now here comes the fun part. We're going to take our sharp knife, it needs to be pretty sharp, and we're going to put 4 to 5 deep slashes into the dough. This is going to make it kind of a pull apart bread. So think that every one of these little cuts is like a slice of bread that you're going to pull out. So we're going to cut these, and we're going to kind of make sure that they're deep enough, and then we're going to dunk the entire loaf into the butter and then into the cinnamon sugar mixture. Now you want to make sure that you have bathed it really well in the butter, and that you get every piece that you can see of dough covered in this cinnamon sugar mixture. That's going to give us that nice crunch. You want to make sure that you put it in the slashes itself, and then we're just going to get it right into the pan, and we're going to do the other loaf, and I'm going to let these rise about 1 hour to 1.5 hours. And then we're going to cook these on 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. Now here I'm pouring the remainder of butter and the remainder of the cinnamon and sugar mixture on top. And again, I'm going to let this rise. It's not going to double, but it is going to rise a little bit. So about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, somewhere in there. I mean, you can even do an hour. There's, you know, no real specific time. It also depends on your house, the temperature it is, and how fast it's going to rise. So when these are ready, we'll get those in the oven, and then I'll show you what they look like. Now I thought that I videoed the topping that goes on it, but it's real simple. It's just a cup of powdered sugar, 1 tablespoon of butter, and then some milk to thin it out. And then once this is cool, you just drizzle that on top. But it is so good. I hope you try this. Here it is, doubled, or almost doubled. That's what you want it to look like. You see all that butter and that sugar have become one, and here it is coming out of the oven. So good. So I always like to temperature test my bread to make sure that it's done, and it was around 190, and that's where I want it. And here it is with the topping. I hope you all try this and let me know how you like it. Thank you all for watching. I hope to see you on the next video.